A decade ago, a second-round draft pick from Michigan State joined a skinny little shooter from Davidson College, and in the 10 years since, they've spearheaded one of the great dynasties in NBA history, with one propelling a dynamic offense and the other leading an elite defense. Together, Draymond Green and Steph Curry reached 6 NBA Finals, and in Game 6 in Boston, they were looking for their 4th championship in the last 8 seasons. Game 6 Clay didn't make an appearance, but Game 6 Dre did, or Big Game Dre, or whatever new nickname this old dancing bear needs, because he was enormous in yet another huge playoff moment. After missing all 11 threes he attempted in the first 5 games, Green made not 1 but 2 triples in Game 6, and he even made a no, yes long 2 to quiet a late Boston run. This offensive juice was a stark turnaround from his extreme struggles in Game 3, where the Celtics were able to nearly play 5-on-4 by cheating off of Draymond. But over the last few games, he's found small ways to be more useful on offense, whether it's attacking opportunistically or with that elite passing vision, using this shooter to manipulate Boston's defense. In this game, he feathered in this bullseye to a cutting Thompson, and on the first offensive possession of the night, a Curry pick and roll sent the Celtics defense scrambling, and so Draymond settled into a soft spot and finished with a little floater. But Green really dominated this game on the defensive end, protecting the rim against the Celtics' perimeter players and disrupting Boston's offense all night, saving this one from behind, which leads to a turnover when Al Horford steps out of bounds. Tatum makes a great defensive play on this pass to Curry, but in a 2-on-2 in transition, Draymond walls off the rim, slides, and destroys Tatum's attempt. Jayson likes to Euro step in these spots when he's attacking out in transition, and earlier in the half he had Green 1-on-1, planted hard to the right, only to come back left and he just flubs the layup. So the second time they meet on the fast break, Green's looking for that Euro, and when JT goes right, Draymond moves left instead, then jumps backwards to avoid a foul, and that's just defensive perfection. Of course, Green is always sniffing out paint threats, sliding over here and throwing off Rob Williams, which leads to another turnover. But his defense against Boston's 2 offensive cogs, Tatum and Jaylen Brown, changed this entire series. Draymond's quick enough to stay in front of them without much help, and big enough to take away their drives and short mid-range shots. He can also impact both of the Jays while he's out there on the same play, starting on Brown, then jumping to Tatum, and if you go back 1 minute, Tatum is isolating against Looney, Green slides over to wall off the drive, so JT pulls back for a comfortable mid-ranger, which means a minute later, Draymond is looking for that step back as Tatum sheds Looney with the same move. Then the second he pivots away from Green, Draymond beams over to Brown, slides to stay in front of Jaylen, and completely contains him on the spin move. Here's one where he ends up on Tatum, stays with him until the help arrives, and then peels off to steal the pass, and ladies and gentlemen, this is a defensive masterclass. There are more subtle examples too, like deterring an entry pass. Then this down screen should free up Jaylen Brown, but Green switches out early so there's no advantage. Then he can help briefly in the post without leaving his own man, and the possession ends in a difficult fadeaway. It's little things like this that make Boston's offense look discombobulated or isolation heavy. Here's a common handoff action teams run for stars. And with Otto Porter Jr. in there, this was an open 3 for Tatum back in Game 5. Now here's the same action in Game 6, with Green jumping out to the ball handler, not once but twice, and Brown doesn't want to challenge him, so Smart attacks the slower Looney, but the Warriors' great help swallows him up, and Curry knocks it out of bounds. The Celtics tried to attack Steph repeatedly throughout this series, and he not only held up well in isolation, but when he would switch onto one of the Jays, Draymond was still lurking and torturing the Celtics with his help. This time they go after the weaker Poole, and it's a hard double from Green, and he stuffs the pass to force his 5th turnover of the game. Over the final 5 games of the series, Tatum and Brown were actually quite successful with Draymond on the bench. But with him out there, their scoring suffered. Tatum looked like one of the best scorers in the 45 minutes Green sat, but with Draymond in the game, his numbers fell off a cliff. Brown maintained his volume when Draymond came in, but suffered the same 13% drop in shooting. As we discussed earlier in the series, Andrew Wiggins' isolation defense was a big part of this story too, regularly locking up Tatum throughout the night, leading to more miscues and turnovers from the Celtics superstar. Gary Payton II also had another big defensive game, and his hands caused problems for the Jays throughout this series, and those turnovers lead to easy offense for Golden State. Of course, one of the reasons the Warriors can play guys like Draymond, Kevon Looney, and GP2 together is the singular offensive brilliance of Curry on the other end of the floor. Steph finished the series averaging 31 points per game on an impressive 63% true shooting, and while he put on one of the great shooting displays in the history of the finals, I think it was his craft, balance, and secure ball handling that proved to be too much for the Celtics. We mentioned this in prior videos during the playoffs, but Steph was able to dance in traffic and body defenders on drives without turning it over. He was stripped for a turnover only twice during the entire postseason, and that really tight handle made him a nightmare in pick and roll action. Even when they end up with Marcus Smart back on him here, the threat of his shot is paralyzing. Curry fakes picking up the dribble, and that's enough to blow by Smart, and then a beautiful finish with the left hand. The Celtics were never really able to limit Curry the way Golden State slowed down their offense. If they sent extra defenders at him in the pick and roll, he set up shots for teammates. And if they tried to play him differently, he just vaporized Boston's big men with his own scoring game. Guarding Curry is a uniquely exhausting mental experience. Relax for even just 2 seconds and he'll bury you. Smart's so laser focused on him here that he doesn't even see Clay flying in for a layup, and then Marcus relaxes for the briefest of moments, and suddenly Curry's loose, and even with 2 Celtics lunging at him, he steps aside and drops in one of his 6 threes. Fittingly, with the lead cut to 9 down the stretch, the Celtics pulled Rob Williams and went to a switch everything defense, so Steph just gave Al Horford some change of pace and walked in for a layup. A minute later, in an 8-point game, they brought Horford back into the Iron Maiden, only this time Ime Udoka wants to spring a double team on Steph, but that's way too easy and opens up shots for his teammates. After that, they go back to trying Horford on Curry Island, and Steph busts out the fake step back, switching hands on his dribble, and as Al lunges, that gives him an angle to lower his shoulder and use that improved strength to finish. The changes in his body, his balance, and his ball handling over time have made him much harder to pressure or trap in these situations, and making moves like this without turning it over has helped to offset a loss of quickness as he's aged. And after a dagger 3 in the corner put the game to bed, the Warriors completed an incredible turnaround where the Splash Brothers missed a combined 3 full seasons of basketball, with Golden State missing the playoffs for 2 consecutive seasons. Steve Kerr's coaching has been incredible in this run, but no matter who else comes and goes on the roster, the Warriors have consistently been powered by this generation's best defensive player and, arguably, the generation's best offensive player too, making them one of the greatest duos in NBA history. For additional content, check out patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. That's also the best way to directly support this channel. We also go deeper on every single game in this series on the Thinking Basketball podcast if you're interested. Thank you so much to everyone who has filled these comments with joyous remarks and observations throughout the season, and to all the subscribers who make this channel what it is. I hope you enjoyed our coverage of the finals and this 75th anniversary NBA year, and that wherever you're watching from, of course, that you are having a great day.